Special workshop into order. And we're going to start with section 2.1, and that's human resources. Ms. Perry, Dr. Hale, y'all are up to bat.
So what we have the budget book for the department, discretionary budgets. And if you look at the human resources section, page 102,
Okay.
I just wanted to point out that this is a summary on this page of all the appropriations and the staffing that we do every year. Then the last few years, we've been doing a deeper comparison of appropriations. And that's what this packet is that I put on your desk. And I did not think about numbering those pages. I'm sorry. I've never. But if you would turn, these are all in alphabetical order. Well, let's start with the first page though first.
So Ms. Perry, just before you get started, just so
Yes.
you know, this is your show, so we'll go by your rules, so just be yourself.
Okay. Well, the very first page of this packet, this shows you by department, the proposed budget for 2021 and the proposed budget for 2022. And it is a 6% increase, but the majority of that increase is due to the Florida retirement system, the projected increase in the health insurance, and an increase in our internet cost. And so those are things that, we really don't have control over. And then if you look at the next page, this is a summary by object. And you can see, like, for instance, on the line 0231, that's the group medical insurance. And you can see that it's gone up $879,000. And like I said, that's projected. Now, it looks like we might not be quite as high as we've projected, but when we create these budgets, we have to do it based on past experience.
And so I don't have my calculator, but I have one in my pocket if I need it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said I don't have my calculator, but I can get one pretty quick. So what percent increase was that? Do you guys know on the health insurance? Was it?
We budgeted 13% based on
All right.
past experience. Looks like it is going to be
Yes,
lower
ma'am.
than that, which
Okay.
would be good.
Awesome.
It's going to be lower, you said?
That's what it looks like, yes, sir.
That'd be great.
Yes.
It's been
That
12
would
and
be-
13
that would
last
be a
few
big
years.
relief. And then, let's see. So that's like I said, that's just an overview by object. Now, if you go to alphabetically, you go to the human resources page.
What page number was that?
I didn't think that's,
It
I'm
doesn't
sorry,
have a
that's in
number.
this
You have to go by
packet.
alphabetic, but
That's in this packet.
at the top. We're on this, right here. You got it?
That's the separate little packet I gave
Okay.
you.
Yeah. What it says, human resources.
For future reference, I will start numbering those pages.
Mr. Bryant, it's in this one.
It's in the stapled handout that she gave you this
Yeah.
morning.
Oh, okay, that's why I'm
About
like,
halfway in.
Yeah, and then you sign.
okay,
A little
I
less
got
than
it, I got
halfway
it.
in.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, no, we're good.
Yes. So that's where I was comparing all the objects over the whole thing, and you see that there was a large increase projected. So that's one of the biggest increases in the budget for departments.
Yeah,
Then if
human
you'll
resources.
continue through that to the human resources, it's in alphabetical order by department. And this is just basically an expansion of that summary sheet that's in the book. looking to see if there's anything that stands out as being larger. And like when you look at that page, the 0100 salary for non-instructional, the 61,000 is quite a large increase when you look at the previous year. Well, that's because we transferred the retirement analyst from the professional services department to human resources.
Okay.
So that's the only reason that's increased. And when I also looked at these comparisons, I noted there was a larger increase in medical for that department than I expected, and that's because one person took medical that didn't take it before. And one thing about departments, where schools, we budget based on average salaries. With departments, we budget based on their actual salaries, their actual insurance. So if you have someone that takes it one year, doesn't the other, you're gonna see a change. If you have a change in personnel, you have somebody paid lower or someone paid higher. Those are things that are beyond the department's control.
Right.
So otherwise, I mean, they were in all of the departments, they did a really good job of staying in their budgets and not increasing. Honestly, absolutely, like I said, the only one that had to was because of the telecommunications internet. But so they did a really good job. Let's see, then do you have any questions about the human resources? Okay. Bay Area office. I say that's apparently I don't know my alphabet because Bay Area office is before Assistant Superintendent Academic Services. And that budget actually went down a little bit.
Is that one in the big notebook, Julie? Is that one have a page number in the big notebook?
It
Yep.
does.
Page
In
30.
the large book.
Okay, thank you, gotcha, I see it.
30.
Gotcha, thank you. Just trying to keep them compared.
Mhm.
Yeah, 29, 30.
We were able to budget a little bit less in the telephone, with less people down there. Our telephone services have gotten less and less. Laundry and electricity has gone down for that office. Okay. So that's standard professional services. In the book is page 135.
Hey, I'm curious, just a question. Why are we still paying long-distance telephone? Do we even do that anymore?
There's sometimes we have a few things of long distance.
I thought everything was
I can
kinda-
find it.
I'm
know
just
we have a-
curious.
Well,
It's
typically,
not very
like with
good.
Cox, when you pay for your phone service, that's
Yeah.
like the long distance.
Yeah, who
That's all
pays for
bundled up
long
in it,
distance
so,
anymore?
yeah.
Yeah,
I'll find out what
Yeah.
I know it's very low.
Yeah.
I
I
can
don't
remember
know.
being a school principal, y'all probably do too, that sometimes when we would request student records, they would have to be faxed, and that was sometimes a
Faxing.
long-distance phone
Oh,
charge.
that's considered long distance? Okay, I didn't realize
So
that.
depending on if they were in another
was
state
faxing.
or
Mhm.
whatever, that fax charge was a phone charge.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
that may be
I
it.
bet you're right. That's
Mhm.
because the faxes use the telephone lines.
Exactly.
Okay,
It's a
so,
hard
okay, yeah,
line.
it did
That
say
makes
fax,
sense.
it just said it said local, then long distance. I thought, who does that? But anyway.
Yeah, but that
You were
would
charged.
that would make sense. All right, so then the professional services, let's see, they went down in overall 49,233, but that was the flip side of that risk management, the retirement analyst position that left professional services. That's why there's a decrease there, but they also cut their operating budget some too. Let me see if there's any. And then we have the risk management department is the last department under Dr. Hale. In the book, it's on page 144. Let's see if I have any special notes on that one. That one, there was a district level secretary deleted and a risk management analyst added effective January 22nd, 2021, based on upgrade committee recommendation. And so in this budget, we're proposing to delete another secretary and add an analyst because she does the same type of jobs. And in the meantime, she's gone to an upgrade committee and they have recommended that.
And I think that would be the question that we would ask, why are we doing that? That's because they're doing the job of,
Yes, or
and
They're doing
Just-
true analyst
right.
work as a secretary,
Right.
and for 2 years consecutively, those two positions
Right.
were acknowledged in the upgrade committee to that effect, so.
correct.
Explain the upgrade committee.
Yes, ma'am, in the ed support contract, there is language that allows employees to bring upgrade requests to a committee that's housed on both, equally on both sides by union representatives and district representatives. And they outline their case for why they should have an upgrade either in the job description or a bump up in salary relative to their job responsibilities. And each year it meets, and each year that, and then Patrick and I, as chief negotiators, sit down together and discuss those recommendations, and then they make their way either through an MOU or through this budgeting process to you guys to kind of validate.
Good.
And doesn't that flow through their superiors so that they can validate
Yes.
and support any upgrades so that
Yes, there's
they,
a-
we know that it's actual and factually based?
Yes, ma'am, there's actually a vetting process in the,
Otherwise, we all might ask for it.
prior to the committee meeting, we've had those conversations, yes, ma'am.
Exactly.
We can get an upgrade, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
so is there any questions about Dr. Hale's budget?
Well, I know you mentioned that, and all of you that know me on the board, when you say cut, I always like to turn that word into manage, and I appreciate how those department heads are managing their
Yes.
budgets
They
and
are.
all,
They
so.
have been really good about that.
Yeah, cut is always, just sounds so.
It's negative, isn't it?
But they are, that's what they're doing, that's what they're supposed to be doing,
They're
managing.
being good stewards.
Yes, they are,
Sure.
so.
All right. Nice, we can move on to curriculum.
Thank you, Dr. Hale.
All righty. So the first one on page 23.
And we have, come on up to slide one. All right, first budget for Ms. Lightborn is on page 23, Assistant Superintendent Academic and Student Services. She's showing an overall increase of $23,012. Her operating budget, she actually was able to reduce. So that all has to do with positions, position costs. Let me just double check, see if there's. And I just had a note that I went through and noticed that one employee had added medical insurance when you compared to the previous year. So that would be the majority of their costs.
That's that 15,000 there, is that what you're talking about?
Insurance?
Mhm.
Let's see.
Health and
I just lost the
hospital?
page.
That's the
0231.
biggest. Okay.
Yes, yeah, the 15,000, see, is when it was 12,000 the previous year, I noticed that the 15,000 was more than the increase I would have expected. So I just double checked, and at the time it was done the previous year, she didn't have insurance. So if the 15 is part of that is the adding insurance, and the other part is the projected increase.
So real quick, while we're on the subject of benefits and salary, out of our budget, I know this has been said before, but just for the people that might be watching right now, what percentage of our budget pretty much is going to go, when we talk about salary and benefits, what's pretty much the amount of, the percentage of our budget that goes to that?
Normally around 85%.
Yeah, it's huge, and that's why.
It is, we're a service industry, really, I mean.
And I appreciate that question, Mr. Bryan, and for the public, one of the ways that I often heard that described to Ms. Perry is exactly what you said. We're a services industry because really what the school board does is that we purchase mostly professional services to provide those services to the children that we've been charged with doing so. So we buy professional services mostly to teach and instruct our children with these funds that we've been given by the taxpayers. That's right.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
And I
White.
have a question in general about cell phone usage and who we provide. Mr. Chambers, if you don't mind, who basically is provided a cell phone? What level employee are we funding that?
So I don't have that right off the top of the head, but we
Oh.
could get you that
Oh,
information.
yeah, just curious.
At the district level, number of administrators have a stipend for cell phones, obviously to utilize for school-related work, but I don't have the exact
Right.
right in front of me, but we can get that.
I know a
As I
long time
recall-
ago, we used to have phones just for, we kind of issued phones, but now I think we just pay for part of their cell
Stipend.
phone bill, right?
I think we pay a stipend.
A
stipend, so that they
And
can-
the big thing about that, I would just add, because I was there too when that was hatched, was the thinking was that these are employees that are basically on call 24/7. And so the district felt like that they ought to be, I don't know how you would say, reimbursed, if you will, for using their device to take care of school district business. And so that's how they did it. Now, things may have changed since that happened,
No,
and I wouldn't know.
that is correct, and there's also different level of categories
Yep.
as well. I think
Right.
I believe off the top of the head, there's 3 different categories.
Okay.
Additionally.
All right, thank
We
you.
had like maintenance facilities in the middle of the night if the boiler or
Right.
something went out,
Right.
so. a lot of
Sure, or a
times it was
principal.
Those, one of those
School
workers.
principal that had to go open
Sure.
the school and get a
Right.
locker so a child could get their book and do their homework.
That's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times with maintenance, if you think about it, they're roving, they're everywhere.
Yes.
So it's not like they have an
Yes.
office to sit down
Mhm.
and have a phone, so. they
As
would-
Mr. Chambers said, they were required 24/7 if an administrator, somebody needed these individuals.
Well, and
They-
keep in mind also in the curriculum department that our specialists are consistently serving our teachers.
Mhm.
And that's how our teachers get a hold of them,
Call
because they're
them.
not always here.
Right.
They're
Right.
in other schools. So
Mhm.
they are consistently contacted through their personal cell phones to support teachers.
Yep.
Sure.
So, and, I'll use, and Terry, you
Mhm.
guys received all of her texts this year about
Yeah.
COVID. So those are the kinds of folks that are supplemented, but they're supplemented at different levels.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
All right, the next department is curriculum, which is page 68 in the book. The overall increase for the whole department, 75,410. But that includes some of the reorganization costs that were approved by the board. They include the deleting one specialist, transferring a director one from the special program schools and principal evaluations to curriculum, and adding 30% of a program director. The 30% is the one that the 70% of this person is going to be paid for with ESSER. So that's where the majority
What
of
position was that
is.
again?
Pardon?
What position was that?
That's a program director.
Okay.
So other than that, they had all normal increases that we would expect. Then we've got the ESC department, page 88. Let's see. Okay. ESE, their increase in their operating was minimal, very minimal. they did have some increases in the staffing. They deleted a .4 ESE parent liaison, but due to an IDEA requirement that said that we had to set aside a certain amount of money for every private school ESE student that might want services, this took a big cut out of the IDEA budget. So 2.5 secretaries that were funded with IDEA, we did have to move to the general fund in the department's discretionary budget.
And so that contributes to that $180,000
Yes, sir.
increase?
Yes, sir.
Because we had to basically shift those salaries to our budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Then we have staff.
And this is one of the largest departments we have,
Mm-hmm.
employee-wise, right? Because all those different services we provide
When you count
through
the
that.
itinerants.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
itinerants, correct.
Yeah, you know, with speech pathologists, social work, I mean, all that we have to
Yes, and you can
provide.
look- That's reflected on that staffing chart on
Right,
page
that's what I'm
88.
looking at. You can see-
It's this, they do have a lot.
Where others might have specialists and all that, these have unique
Mhm.
skills that these individuals provide.
Right.
And Ms. Perry, real quick, if I can just interject in, Ms. Vancheck brought up something in our board workshop about how the money is spent. And this is obviously one of those ways that we have to spend it this particular way because it's how we're being told to spend it.
Exactly.
And it's
And
not.
you would want to spend it that way because these are the very students you need to support.
Right.
Well, and what I would say on this particular department as well, and I know you all firmly get it, when you look at the size of our ESE department, those itinerants that are out at the school level, but then you look at the district level administrators supporting that, which is extremely minimal. We have 3 district administrators covering our entire ESE department, but they're doing a fantastic job. But just for comparison's sake.
Right.
Okay, so then we have staff development. The book page is 159. Let me see. We had no increase in operating. There was an increase in the cost of the positions. Let me double check what that was. This was due to the reorganization. What's happened is we added a specialist there, which is why you're seeing the large increase in the discretionary budget. What you're not seeing reflected there is the instructional coach that was deleted from the reading project. And then what we can do then is use some of that reading money that was freed up there and use it to pay for some reading teachers that we would have had to pay for with general fund. So it's, that way it's paying for itself.
So, Ms. Lightbourne, I know we can see it right here, but for people that are watching, what is this particular job duty for this person?
So this person is providing professional development and services to our ELA 6 through 12 and our social studies K through 12. So really, it's a ELA/social studies specialist.
Right.
We had a TSA doing that, supporting ELA and then picking up some of the social studies. That was paid out of reading. And so this is actually bringing her to what she should have been. And then we'll be able to use that reading money to support more, to pay for more of our coaches. So it's kind of shifting it around.
And I'd just like to interject, Mr. Bryant, this is an area, another example of where the school district has had to tighten its belt and cut back, because there are some of us here that remember that in staff development, we used to have 2 administrators and 2 secretaries that ran that program. And I can assure you that that was a far greater amount than what we're looking at here. But that's what's happened all over.
But I would have thought it would have been, you actually get more now with the new best standards and how we're about to implement those and those lower grades. How is that being absorbed in that,
So.
in different departments?
Is it okay to use names?
You're just taking on those jobs.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Miss Berry is also over the ELA at elementary.
Right.
So she covers the K through 5.
Right.
Lynn Kozak covers the 6 through 12, and they're supporting all schools
Okay.
in the new best standards on the ELA side. And then in math, Amy Dale next year will be our elementary, and Stephanie Thetford is our secondary. Just Lynn Kozak wasn't a specialist.
Mm-hmm, yes, we
So-
changed that, yeah. So basically, everybody's just taking that on
Yes.
under their job description as we move into those new standards.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I would like to add, so Ms. Lightborn and her group do a very good job with the amount of work that has to be done. But I think in a meeting like this, when we're looking at department budgets, again, if you look across the state and you look at different departments such as curriculum instruction, and you look at a district such as what many might say is the #1 district in the state based on testing, even though I would say we're right there too. But if you look at the sizes of those departments and the amount of man and woman power that's in there, substantially more than what we have. And I think, as Dr. White eloquently said, we have tightened our belt. Ms. Lightborn and other leaders at the district level are working with a smaller staff, but they're still being very productive.
And it feels like over time, every department head has become a trainer himself or herself. So everybody shares the burden, or the responsibility rather, for staff development.
Yes.
Everybody is training some group at some time.
Yes, ma'am.
The next one would be the SIS Attendance, Discipline, and Athletics. In the book, it's page 166. And that went up very minimal. They were actually reduced their operating budget by almost enough to pay for those slight increases that naturally happened with their position costs. So their overall budget only went up $1,284. And then the next section is the ESOL, Psychologists and Health Services. They had no increase at all in their operating budget. They did have an increase in their positions, but that was due to the district reorganization. This is a similar situation as before, where they've added a specialist, and the position that was deleted was a teacher on special assignment that was funded in the SAI ESOL project. So then, like I said, we would repurpose those funds to be able to use them for ESOL interpreters or class size reduction teachers.
Now, these mental health counselors that are, right here it says 16 units, and then there's another one that's 2 units. Are all those filled? Because I know we're always looking for those. So I know they're budgeted, but are they filled?
We're still hiring.
Yeah.
I know Terry was excited. She got a good one, I think, Monday. So we're still hiring. We're still looking.
Yeah, very challenging to get,
All of the itinerants are challenging, honestly.
to get people in there. Okay.
The mental health counselors, the school psychologists, and the speech. There's those are very hard to fill positions.
But this is what we need.
Correct. We
Yes.
What we're
absolutely do.
budgeted is what we, of course, need. Okay.
So does anybody have any questions about Ms. Lightborn's department?
I can just tell you from just what I saw on Thursday, I'm really excited to see all the changes and just the positive vibes that came out. I know me and Mr. Chambers sat through that particular training session, and I was complimenting on how excited I am just to kind of see all the great things that are going to come out of that department. So,
In Ms. Lightborn, before you leave, Title I falls under you, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you oversee that, you approve, or, I know
Yes.
that's a project, so we're not going to see it here.
Right.
But that's presented to you, and then you oversee.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Title I, Title IV, Title II.
Exactly.
It can go on.
You get all those
Just say
numbers.
federal. Federal.
Yes.
Yes.
Get all those.
Sometime I'd like to look at that title, kind of see how that
Title I.
Title I. No,
You
but I'll
can-
get with you later on that.
Thank you, Ms. Blackburn.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Nice job.
So, were they gonna let us know when?
It's
They-
not
they'll-
here
They'll
yet.
bring it straight down.
Okay, so
Let's
we'll
keep
just wait,
moving.
we'll keep going until.
Yeah, keep going,
So,
because we might
thank you,
get
Ms.
this
Blackburn.
done.
Ms. Perry, it's your
Essence, I'm
turn.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The Chief Financial Officer budget is on page 52 of the book. Had no change in the operating budget. One thing that we did do was there was a budget analyst position under Rita in that department. And when she retired and the person in the position retired, we were moving that position was doing capital and debt service. So instead of it being under Chief Financial Officer now, it's going to be moved under the budgeting department.
Mm.
So you'll see a decrease in position costs in the Chief Financial Officer. And since it's filled by a new person, it's changing from budget analyst to accountant, because our budget analysts or financial analysts, those are only recommended after someone's been an accountant in our district for at least 5 years.
Oh.
Okay, so this is a new person, a new position, so it's an accountant. But that's why you'll see a decrease in there. Now, there's a combination of many things. There's the decrease of that position. We've also added a payroll clerk position that the board approved on February the 8th, 2021. We're not going to be filling that until next January, but we do have it budgeted, so they'll be ready when she's ready to fill it.
And that's
Um,
part, and that's part of a long-term plan. We know that
Right.
in payroll,
Mhm.
there's 2 individuals that will be retiring.
Right.
Yes.
Which means there'll be 1 left, so this will be another person that'll be training at the same time. And payroll is very slim staff-wise to begin with, but this is a long-term plan to make sure that we can continue being very strong, obviously, in payroll program.
So, quick question, I know it was on our agenda for Monday night, but we're gonna be going away from the AS400 program. And how is that gonna affect us with payroll and things like that in the future? I mean, from what I'm seeing, I'm really, seeing that it's gonna be a lot of positives to make their jobs a little bit easier, where we might not have to have so many people in that position for, say, in the future.
I was
Yes,
happy to see those big printers going away and the big green bar sheets.
Yeah. The
I'll
fact
say
that we still have
the
dot
focus
matrix
with
printers.
payroll, it'll bring us into the 21st century. Like employees will be able to see pay stubs, their W-2s, they'll be able to see stuff that now they have to request, so it'll be there. So it's going to be fantastic for those types of pieces, but then we'll see how the employee piece will be impacted based
Right.
on the efficiency of
Right.
focus.
And they can print their own reports.
Yeah,
Don't have
that
to
should
request
save us
reports.
money on printing, like the check stubs, we shouldn't have to do that anymore.
Alright.
The state doesn't do it anymore. You don't
Yeah.
get anything in the mail, so,
So when Mr. Ward gets in here, we can go deeper into the. we can
right,
go
right,
deeper
yeah,
into
so that,
focus.
there's a lot of things that can save us. But I think, it's my understanding that it's not necessarily going to, hate to use that word, that cut employees. It's just gonna make it more efficient, and they
Right.
can just assimilate more things in a more rapid way than, that, but we'll still need the individuals in there, those
Right.
positions.
And
Yeah,
and
we
I
have a
thank you
very
for saying that, because that's what I was really getting at, was that it was gonna make their jobs easier, so.
Now, what our public needs to, I was talking to Mr. Mitchell, the system we're using right now, that AS400, that was back in the early 70s that we started using that dinosaur. So like
Very
you said, we're coming
clunky.
up in the 21st century. The AS400 has been around
Oh.
since and Dr. White remembers, and I mean, all the, I never could
I was
figure-
there when that was hatched too. And I'll never forget what our data processing director
And I
said.
had a great
Ms.
data
Gardner.
entry person that knew how to do it, because
Yeah, yeah.
hmm.
After
It was a
we
nightmare.
moved to the AS400, he made the remark, "I just hope I never have to do this again before I retire,"
Well, I remember
because it
having
was
to-
massive.
I remember having to learn all those so-called backdoor tricks, like tab, back, and to see a student's test scores, and then you wanted to see the the depth of the test scores. You had to know how to get
Oh, yeah,
around, and
pages
it was
of-
very clunky.
But Dr. White, you and I do remember, I think we were probably students when we first got those first printed out electronic, because back in the day, the teacher wrote on a
Oh, yeah, I
thing
got
and
the
handed
handwritten
it back
report
to
cards,
you.
right.
And we finally got those printed
That's right,
out
that's right,
report cards when
So
they
this
went to the
program is
digital.
bringing us up to where we need to,
Yeah, and I know
20%
Mr.
to where we
Horton,
need to be.
maybe
Yeah.
we can follow up with some
Right,
of this with
right,
him, but,
right.
but I think I heard a great percentage of school districts now use Focus. And we may be one of the last remaining that uses AS400.
We know the ones in the Panhandle do.
Right.
I know where there's a handful, if that, left with AS400 from what's been shared. I believe, and Mr. Horton can give the better percentage, about 50% or more use Focus.
Right.
And again, this will be for our student programs, for human resources, and for the finance programs.
Well, we're not gonna be doing any student voting though, with Focus on it.
We will not.
No student vote.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Then we can stop and eat.
Yeah, I just remember when I saw AS400 for the first time, I was going like, really? This is still out there? All right, Ms. Perry, go ahead.
Okay, so the accounting department we'll go through next. That is, okay, at the beginning of the book, page 17. That one, let's see. We had a $275 increase in operating. The rest of it is normal, what I would expect the positions to increase, based on raises and FRS, medical insurance and everything, so that's all normal. The budgeting department, we kept our operating budget the same. We've added a specialist position as of the approval, for your approval on February the 8th. And we have the accountant that's moved over from the chief financial officer, so that's why you're gonna see a large increase in the position costs. And then we have purchasing. See, page 139. And purchasing is, there again, that is just all the normal increases that you would expect for the year. Nothing exceptional happened there. So, did you have any questions about any of my departments?
Board members, any comments for Ms. Perry? All right, well, at this time, we are going to recess for lunch, and we are going to take about, what do y'all want to say, about 30 minutes, 20 minutes? 30 minutes, okay, we're recessed for 30 minutes. Mr. Chambers, I believe it's your turn, sir.
All right. So, Mr. Chambers, the superintendent's budget is on page 178 of the book. He has no increase in the operating budget, and the increases in positions are just normal increases that we would expect. Then the Niceville Central Complex budget, then again, there's no increases in operating and normal increases for employees' costs. So there's nothing unusual about either of those. Okay.
All right.
Great, move it, all right?
Yep.
And then school boards.
And I got from Jan here, so.
All right. And
And-
the school board budget. There's nothing unusual on that one.
Well, there is going to be the one with the value-added board fees that we were told we were going to have to start paying, so.
Yes, and I'm gonna have to probably add that in there.
Yes, so $4,500, so.
Yeah.
So when that does come, when that does get updated, that's what that $4,500 is for. Over the years, it's just never been built to us, so.
But they ask us to be on that board, right?
Well, it's
Law.
it's the law that we have to.
Do
be
you
on
have to have
there.
somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So then, we can move on to Mr. Horton
Okay.
budgets. Mhm. There's this, so you've got that. We'll start with the deputy superintendent. Why would that be on page 130?
We're doing good on time, Mr. Chairman.
That page
Yes, sir,
would
we're going to be
weird.
done quickly.
Hmm.
What's this supplement I'm on the board? What's that
That's
supplement?
not good. Deputy superintendent in the book is on page.
Supplements, salary supplements.
I know you're gotta be here. Page 78.
Okay, I'm just curious.
We'll ask her.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Julie, can we go back to the school board real quick?
Sure.
So Ms. Vancheck does have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, it says salary supplements on there. What is that about? Just curious what that entails.
Salary supplements.
0103?
0103. I would have to look to see exactly
Okay.
what that supplement is. I've got 550, I can't remember off the top of my head. what that one would be
550?
for. Yeah, it's $550
Yeah.
each year, but let me,
Okay.
I'll check into
That's
that and
fine.
let
All
you know.
right, thank you.
Yeah.
No, big deal, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Vancheck.
Mm. Okay. Deputy superintendent.
Is that actually page 80?
78.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry about that
all
typo
right.
on there. Overall, there was a decrease in the operating budget requested, and the staff positions are all within the normal realm. The only difference is, of course, I'm sorry. We had a little slight increase because we have a change from assistant superintendent to deputy superintendent, and we renamed the center that. I'm sorry, you have tongue tied. Do you have any questions about his budget?
Well, I appreciate the organizational chart, and that's a lot of different areas, Mr. Horton. But I'm curious about schools. do schools report to the deputy superintendent, or they report to different, depending upon evaluator, or how does that work?
So I know in the past on here, there were schools associated with certain deputy superintendents. So
Right.
we've made sure it was accurate in terms of who actually reports to schools. So the schools are based on who evaluates them.
Okay, so they might report to yourself, or they might report to Mr. Horton, or,
Correct. So you'll see, like,
Okay.
so I think off the top of my head, Sheila Lightbourne, Jeff Palmer, Kathy Yard, Tracy
Okay.
Lamb.
Okay.
They are the ones who are evaluating, so
Okay.
those schools report to them.
okay, all right.
And by reporting to them, what, just anything that,
Evaluation-wise.
okay.
And then, of course, as it deals with Mr. Horton's responsibilities or it deals with Mr. Hale's responsibilities, they obviously interact with the schools in that fashion.
Okay.
But that wouldn't be reflected on any of these charts, per se.
No, ma'am.
So to move on to career and technical education. Our book is page 41. The summary of the budget on page 42. Their operating budget that they requested was actually a little bit less. And you'll see that the instructional cost went down a little bit. That was due to a change in personnel. Otherwise, everything is also within the normal range for career and technical ed. The Carver Hill budget, page 47.
Julie, real quick,
Yes,
going
sir.
back to
The career and technical?
the career and technical.
Yes, sir.
So on the staffing chart grid there, I noticed that it says like 1 unit and then 0.11 is CAPE.
Yes.
So for people that might be interested to know what that acronym stands for.
CAPE
and-
is the career and professional education.
And that's helping fund that particular.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Originally, that position was a specialist, and then when they decided to change to program director, with the help of the CAPE funding, the CAPE funded the difference.
In general terms, that CAPE program is where students earn certifications, industry certifications, and so that results in additional weighted funding to the school district. And the statute provides that a portion of that funding can be used. It must go back into the program that supports those students' certifications, and this meets that requirement.
Thank you.
Okay. On the Carver Hill budget, on page 47, you will see a large increase in the operating budget, and that is the internet that I mentioned earlier. We did go up in internet cost. That is a 92,000 of that. So it's just about the little increase.
Those are costs we don't control, just so people know that.
And I think, Dr. Kelly, in this situation, the budget last year undervalued the cost of internet. It had been higher in previous years, and so last year, the budget number needed to be supplemented. So we're essentially back to where we were 2 years ago. Now, speaking to the internet conversation this morning with the fiber optic network piece, some of this internet cost is WAN, which is wide area network connecting our schools. When that goes away with this fiber optic project, you should expect to see this number be lower next year. Again, we will be paying something to the county for maintenance of these fiber optic networks, but it'd probably come from another source at that point. If that makes sense.
And I think for, just to kind of explain to people, our public there, Carver Hill is where we have basically the brains of our computer system is up there. I mean, this is where it all happens up there.
That's correct.
Right. And that's why you see that number so high for that, because of,
And that's paying for the whole district.
Yes, that covers
That covers the whole district.
Right.
It's just charged at the
Right.
Dillon Center.
okay.
Okay. All right, so the next department is Community Affairs, page 59. There's nothing unusual in that department. A slight decrease in the operating, and the staff positions are all within reason, what we've expected. Courier services. They did decrease their operating budget slightly. And there's showing a decrease in the staff cost, even though there was no change in staffing, and that is due to a change in personnel. What I mentioned earlier, that if somebody comes in at a lower cost, you'll see that in this budget.
You know, at one time, I think we had 4 courier people, long time ago, right?
Three.
Way before my time.
Could
we've
have
always-
been, I mean, 3 since I've been.
always
Okay.
had 3. when
But
I was-
that seems, and that plan still seems to work, because we don't do service every day, right? It's,
Not full runs, no
Right.
ma'am. We do work with the libraries in Okaloosa County to transport books between libraries as well, and we'll bring a contract for you for that service. But 3 works. We did have a couple of year period where we were with 2.
Okay, maybe
couriers,
that's
and
what I'm
where
thinking.
we got to be untenable, and we were ending up paying other folks outside of their job hours to drive a courier whenever we needed to. So we're back to 3, which is, I think, is appropriate.
yeah,
Going
and
back
that's
to the
working,
90s,
yeah.
we had 3.
Yeah.
All right. The next department is custodial services, page 73. And the reason we have a decrease in the cost of positions is due to the health insurance. Someone, and this was taking it last year, they're not taking it this year. So you have the decrease in the position cost.
Okay, so on these zone managers that we have, why do we have 4? Aren't we generally in just 3 zones?
We have north, central, and south, but
Right.
these are split up in 4 areas.
Okay.
Just based on the workload, the number of schools that they're
Okay,
servicing.
okay, so,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, all right, thank you.
And then with regard to the cleaner positions, I think we've had more district custodial or cleaner positions in budgets in previous years, and maybe not as many last year. What we find is if we try to hire folks to serve as fill-ins when the schools are down custodial, and then once that happens, the school ends up hiring them anyway, so we can't really keep these custodial positions filled at the district level.
Right.
So we're down now to just 3 cleaner positions. It's very likely that we won't fill those this year, but to the extent that we can, we will, and then provide support to schools.
The next one is digital media and communications. That's a new project. Department, I'm sorry. And this department is for the new position that was approved in the reorganization. So that's all based on that person.
Well, and I know this is something that's really going to really be another tool of communication, in my opinion, and at the level of quality as far as the video presentation, it's going to be really, a really good tool of communicating, but it's going to be done professionally, and I think this is a good thing for our school districts.
Okay, the next department is facilities planning, page 94. They did have an increase in their operating. That was due to, the school plant surveys and stadium gym inspections. They have to do those every few years, and this is the year they're gonna have to do that, so they had to increase by the 15,000. Otherwise, everything is normal in that budget. Then we have information systems, page 107. Okay, we had quite a few position changes this year. In February, we deleted one administrative 2 position and added one district level secretary. And then the reorganization deleted 1 director and added a director 1, deleted 1 online data technician and added 1 MIS IT security official, deleted a programmer and added an information systems database official, and we also deleted a computer 1 position. So, and these positions, if you remember when we did the reorganization, because the new positions are undetermined, we budget those at a mid-range. But so when I had to do the budget, I had to do the new positions at that mid-range amount, and then any positions that went away, I had to do those at the actual amount. So that's why you see a slight decrease, plus like I said, they did delete a position and went down. Have any questions about this one?
The teacher on special assignment, what is that position under information?
In what, that position is help desk support right now, and also it works with volunteers and volunteer applications throughout the year.
Oh, okay.
While we're talking about that, I know this isn't directly related to the help desk, but we've talked maybe 6 months ago about maybe reinvestigating or reinvesting in a switchboard operator. I just think sometimes you call the central number and you get all of these automated things, and you can sit there for minutes and minutes and minutes and never get somewhere. So might we look at that, or look at a better way to reroute our general customer to where they need to be? I know this isn't your department necessarily, but that rang a bell in my mind, and I'm afraid if I don't say it while it's on my mind, I might forget it.
I do think that's
I'll
a
look
good
at
idea
that.
to have a voice come on
Yeah,
and
have
talk
a
to
real
them.
person that's warm and inviting instead of frustration that emits from never getting anywhere.
Well, sometimes you don't really know what department. You know what
Mhm.
you need,
need
but
a
you don't
person
really
to
know the
say.
department,
Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
you're going around in circles, and
If you
and you're
could just
kinda-
explain, I'm just trying to get a record, or I'm just trying to
Mhm.
get,
Mhm.
a real person to help me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the next department is instructional technology. Okay, this one, this department normally would pay for a specialist and a TSA. And several years ago, when we received the digital classrooms allocation, we were able to use that to help us pay for those positions. That allocation has gotten smaller and smaller over the years, and so this year, we had to move the specialist back out of digital classrooms and into the discretionary budget. So that's why you're gonna see that increase. Otherwise, there's nothing, there looks like it's a $200 operating decrease. And you have your maintenance department. The only change through the year was deleting a heavy equipment operator and adding a site-based tech, and that was last August. The operating budget is slightly decreased, around $1,000. And the cost of the positions only went up 114, which is really not much when it's $4 million in positions.
Okay, I have a question about, don't we have on this, is it this agenda that we have something about a site-based technician coming off
Mhm.
and changing to an HVAC, right?
Yes, ma'am. We had a position here in the central part of the county, a leaderman position. The individual transferred to the north end. That leaderman's expertise was in a certain area, so now
Mhm.
we're minus that expertise in the central part of the county. So what we're doing is we're going to be swapping out requesting to swap out a site-based position for a trades position that we can then hire and make sure we continue that support in the central part of the county that we just lost.
So site-based, are those your, like, we used to say, plant operators?
Yes, ma'am, and there are, generally speaking, the high schools have one, but most of the other schools share a site-based technician amongst 2 or 3 different schools throughout.
But we've eliminated one, and then we're looking at another one, so is that leaving anybody without?
No, what it typically means is among the rest that are in that ability, there's one more school or 2 more schools to pick up.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's always, we're stretched fairly thin with site-based technicians. I mean,
Right.
It'd be great to have every school to have one, but I think that right now the model we have is as efficient as we can be. under
The high
budget.
schools have one, and then
Yes,
the other schools share in a zone or whatever.
Yes, ma'am. And there are many times where there's a job that requires more than one set of hands, so the zone foremen get together and they work on a plan to bring more than one person to a site to do certain things.
We experienced that, didn't we, Ms. Gardner, when we shared a foreman?
Yep.
And the heavy equipment operator, do we just not need that
We're trying.
anymore, or?
It's just a position that we're working to do without and work around,
Okay,
so I think we're okay in that area.
okay, great.
And I'll just add, and board members, you might know this, we used to have a grounds crew and even had a road crew that
Yep.
could build roads and lay asphalt. But here again, another area that we've had to let go, unfortunately.
And the principals really do miss those services right
Oh,
there.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, and along those lines, Dr. White, one of the things that we're all gearing up for right now, and I know it's very important to all of us, is the front entrance of our schools and how they look as teachers come back and then students come back.
And as we have
do
open
have a
houses.
contract with a lawn care company that they came in a couple of years ago after the previously awarded vendor could not do the job.
Right.
So we brought back this new group, and they've been with us for a few years. I think that Grant Meyer and Steve Bolton have a plan to make sure that the
Good.
front entrances of schools look good, even if that means we don't cut the back 40, a certain time, but that we're around all the schools to make sure they look good at the beginning of the year.
Good.
So the
Yeah,
rain
that's
is always the wild card, and I saw something on the internet that said it's only rained twice here this summer, once for 27 days and once for 30 days. So that hinders us, but we are absolutely receptive and responsive to the need for schools to look good at the beginning of the year.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, and it's very important. And as we drive around, view those campuses, we can tell that kind of thing. You know, here again, I remember when school principals were responsible for getting the grounds taken care of, using their resources, their custodial staff, et cetera. But this is an area that I guess the district has assumed, and that's been going on that way for quite some time. But it used to kind of be a thing that principals were responsible for, and they just had to get it done. So,
Well, we're also lucky because we have a lot of community groups that help out the schools. I've already seen some student groups and church groups and all that helping at different schools,
Yeah.
and appreciate that. That helps us out a lot.
And what I suspect has happened is that over these years, since the district has assumed this responsibility for, how many schools, 45 roughly?
39-ish.
39.
Yeah, counting facilities, Bay Area and all that, I mean, it gets up there pretty quick. That's a lot of acreage. And I suspect, don't know, but schools probably don't even have the equipment and materials to do that anymore that they once had. And there was a time when principals would ask board members to buy tractors and
Tractors.
lawnmowers.
Yeah.
So they could get the grass cut, but I guess they don't have access to that anymore, and so therefore it's fallen on the district.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that?
We're going to make it work. It's going to look good.
Well,
You might see me on a mower before school starts.
After hours.
Well, it's interesting that this is coming up because I was sending pictures of certain schools the other day to Steve saying, hey, it's pretty bad, so.
Well, so I will say, because we've discussed this, and I know you and I were at a school.
Yeah.
Some of you others have looked at certain schools, and it's been I think it's been a theme for multiple years. the number of cuts certain schools get, the number that you'll get in the summer versus the fall, the spring. So one of the things that we will be doing over the course of this year is looking at the amount that we pay for services to have our schools cut, that amount versus if we did create our own crew again versus if we then had to purchase some of those lawnmowers and such, how much would that cost? And then kind of push that out to the future in terms of, the amount of money. So we are going to look into that and see the cost of that. Could there be an increase? There could. Would we have better services? Maybe, but we want to look into that. So we'll be looking at that over the course of this year and then make an informed recommendation.
Well, at least we'd have control over it more if it was on our side, but you got to, of course, look at the cost.
All right, the next cost center is operational services. That is a new cost center for the new position that was approved in the reorganization, Director 1 of Operational Services.
We're not doing Niceville.
That was under Mr.
And the next, then the next one is school safety. School safety is page 154 in the book. Nothing unusual they did go up a little bit in their operating budget. I didn't know what that was. It is in software subscriptions. That's the big increase.
So, real quick on this particular item, so this, school safety, that would be Danny Dean,
Yes, sir.
okay? And the specialist,
He's a specialist position at this time, yes, sir.
okay, so the foreman.
That's the fire safety, Mr. Patrick, who does our
Okay.
fire safety inspections.
All right. Now, I think might be a time that we talk about what your vision for this department
Yes,
is.
sir. Yes, sir. And
So-
I've reached out to individuals and had conversations, but we have a need to increase our ability to be in schools and to supervise and direct, not the fire safety piece of things, but the school safety as it relates to active shooters and lockdowns and things like that, which Mr. Patrick is not on that side of the safety piece. So a couple of things have happened this year that have really caused us to want to go and expand these, and it's not part of this budget, but we talked about potentially bringing a job description to the board in the future. Two things have happened. Number one, state board rule has been written this summer that has put a lot more specificity in our oversight of charter schools as it relates to school safety and their compliance with all of the statutes and rules that came out of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And so our need to be out and in the charter schools, and we had a meeting with our charter school principals leaders this summer, Danny and I did, to outline what that state board rule indicated. And what we've done as a district, I think, is stepped out above other districts related to charter schools. It's been a few years that we developed a sign-off sheet for each of our charter schools that had all of the state board rules and laws that they're required to abide by. We asked their principal and board to sign off on those annually. And right now, as we're working through this process, we need to be in their facilities more and putting eyes on things and checking things. There's a lot of language that holds the school district accountable for the protocols that are in those charter schools. And I know in previous years prior to this, this board has oversight of charter schools and approves their charter, but this puts more into the day-to-day operations within the charter schools.
Now,
So-
you made a comment there about the language. The language is basically what is brought.
In the state board rule, that we've got to know
Right.
that all of our charter schools are complying in every sense of the word with, whether it's the number of drills that they're having, their threat assessment team documentation, that they are conducting threat assessments, and we are going to become a much more active participant in that. That said, that's one side of this coin. The other is that Danny is essentially, until Mr. Patrick came in on the fire safety side, he did not bring Danny any additional support on the safe schools, traditional safe schools piece. So Danny is a one-man shop as it relates to all of our facilities, including Central, and his oversight with regard to safety. So I've watched for a couple of years. I look at the other districts in the state of Florida, and I would like to bring him some more support in that area in the form of a safe schools technician or position that he could supervise that spends much of the time out in the schools, talking with principals and assessing their safety and security. We've got a great relationship with the school resource officer program, and those folks have a lot on their plate to do as well in schools. So it's not an overlap of that. It's a new set of procedures that we want to implement that make sure our schools are as safe as possible.
But you're saying that's for future consideration?
I think so, yes,
Okay.
sir. And I'm with the superintendent. It is okay. I would bring a job description for the board to consider for possible funding, and checking with Julie to make sure the funding is available to put an additional person in the Office of Safe Schools that would be responsible for being out in the schools and making sure we're being compliant in all facets of our Safe Schools plan.
And I appreciate the vision part of this, because I just don't think, and the state's going to go easy on school safety moving forward. I just don't see it. So I think if we're having that vision to have that person in place to help our one person that's in there, I think that's a good thing. So, but I just don't see it getting any easier for the schools and what our responsibility is with school safety. So, okay. You good?
Well, I would, no, sir, along school safety, and doesn't particularly pertain to this position, but I guess in a broader view, it probably does. I so much appreciate the sheriff, former sheriff, and the superintendent moving us forward with our Guardian program. Board members, you might be aware that Governor DeSantis has recently sent a letter to another school board who has not done that. And I mean, I would say it was a pretty strong letter. And I just appreciate us having the foresight and the vision to move forward with that in conjunction with our sheriff and the recommendations that came out of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And I also appreciate Mr. Horton looking at this in the same way, Mr. Bryant, because I can tell you right now, I think you're exactly right, that when it ties into school safety, the state's not going to give any quarter there. And I think they're about accountability, particularly in that measure, including this school board.
Exactly.
So at least that was the message that was communicated, I believe, to the other school board.
Sure.
And so I just say, again, thank you, Mr. Horton, for bringing this forward.
Right. Okay. Ms. Perry?
So the next department is student assessment. The book page is 163. The only thing this department pays for is this one position, the Evaluation Differentiation Accountability Analyst. And that is just a normal increase in position cost. And then the last three are going to be your transportation departments. Transportation Central, we did not project any need for an increase in the operating budget. Let's see. I was looking at the costs of the positions, and I noticed that they went down, but it wasn't that the positions didn't change. It was that there were a lot of new bus drivers, and so they were paid, starting lower. You had other people retire, so that's why you had the decrease in the cost. And you also had many different employees, some taking insurance, some not. So all those changes are the only things that affected that staffing cost. And the same with the transportation north. Those are all just normal increases and decreases based on actual. There was a slight increase in the operating needed, about 40,000.
So I have a question on software subscriptions under transportation. What is that?
Yes, ma'am. That's the bus bulletin that we implemented last spring to notify parents when school buses were running late. So we invite parents to sign up for that online and get the app.
But it's doubled.
If it's doubled, it's because we only did it for half a year last year in the spring
Okay.
as a pilot. So we'll implement it full year cost this year.
I just thought, I forgot that, yeah, it's kind of
Yes, ma'am.
doubled, yeah.
What kind of response did we get initially?
At last count, I kind of had to check first. I think we probably had 1,000 people sign up for it. We'll make sure to promote it in our back to school, catch the wave, and at the beginning of the year, and so hopefully get that number up higher.
And of course, with each school doing their open houses, hopefully that's
Yes, ma'am.
a part of the community.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Sorry. Yes, sir.
good.
We gave flyers
You're
and
good.
everything. We'll do the same thing back to school.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought I was still talking to Ms. Vancheck, sorry.
Hey, it's
We-
all.
I mean, we did, yeah.
it's all- Hey, you know what's looking good is, I'm kind of surprised, is that we're still showing basic, I know we have a contract on fuel, and every day you go try and get gas, it's all over, and we keep that contract, so that must be holding.
Well, and I know that Jay works with Vince on that in terms of fuel, so I'd defer to him on that, but I know
Yeah, but it's-
he's done it for a long time, so he knows what he's doing in budgeting.
That's
for
good.
that.
Good to see.
I think that's all kind of like based on stock trading, futures and all that. You kind of have to buy it in at a certain point, so. Any questions regarding transportation?
And then, like I said, and that's, transportation south is in the same kind of thing where, just changes in personnel.
Then I'll say, if I can, one more thing for transportation. Dr. White brought it up this morning. I shared with Channel 3 and WUWF this week more in the line of 20 to 25 vacant positions.
You mean they didn't get it right?
Whoever put it out there, but I've got my emails to show. But now, each year, we have vacant positions throughout the year.
Sure.
So we made it through last year with vacant positions, the same year before. So really, are we more in vacant positions than we normally are, which is what the cause for concern is. And I think if we have the ability to do what Dr. Kelly said, and that is have some of our coaches help drive bus routes in the morning and the afternoon at the schools in which they work, that will help us out. That's the one thing that Jay really wants to be able to do. So
And Mr. Horton, I don't know how you feel about this, but other employees too. I mean, non-instructional
Exactly.
personnel. I don't know if they're
Anybody with a
eligible
CDL.
or part of this or not, but. I mean-
that is part of the discussion right
Okay,
now too.
I
Yes,
see.
sir,
All right.
absolutely.
All right.
Do we train them to get that CDL, or do we pay for that, or?
What happens is they'll come in, we'll take them through the training. I think it's a total of about 40 hours.
Uh-huh.
Then they'll test for their CDL in Chipley. And then once they receive that, then they are, at that point, officially hired, and the school district goes back and pays them for that time that they went through the training.
Okay, so, yeah, essentially.
And at this point, based on the board's approval, the $500 bonus at that time as well.
And the finder's fee.
And the finder's
The finder's
yeah.
fee
Yeah.
that's still out there. Yes, ma'am.
So you find me and I'll find you, and we'll
Okay.
work on that. This may be not a smart question, but getting these new buses in, bottom line, is that going to save us on operating expenses anyway? Maybe we're not having to repair so many or anything like that. Do we have any sense of that? I know we don't probably have dollars and cents, exact dollars and cents, but a feeling for that, things will probably be better when then repairing.
And we'll have Jay tracking that this year in terms of
Yeah,
maintenance on those buses.
that'll be
We
good.
obviously still have to inspect them monthly, which is a cost,
Yeah.
and then do regular preventative maintenance on them.
Right.
But in terms of big things happening to them, they're either under warranty for a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
or we'll expect fewer expenditures on that, from that side. So yes, ma'am.
And didn't
Yeah.
you indicate to me some other things about maybe looking at some other vehicles that we might want to consider?
And we'll bring that forward in the capital budget that will come at the next
Meeting, yeah, okay.
board workshop. Yes, ma'am.
All right, good, thank you.
Just thinking about recruiting bus drivers, wouldn't the fact that all of these new buses, I know I heard Ms. Evanchik say, you know, they're all air conditioned, they all have seat belts, but they also do all have, to my understanding, 3 cameras. So if you're a driver and you're worried about what's happening back there because you don't have eyes in the back of your head, the fact that you've got cameras on board might be also another recruiting tool to put out there.
That, and they're all equipped with internal radios with speakers in the bus, so if you and I growing up remember the bus driver kind of looking over their shoulder telling us to sit down and be quiet, they can now do that from a radio. I will say with 40 new buses coming in this year, there are probably 40 existing experienced drivers
In line.
that maybe have put their names down on some of those, Dr. White,
Yeah.
you might know as well, but
Yep.
I'm not sure if we could hold those brand new ones out for the brand new drivers.
No.
That's something that Jay
That
would,
wouldn't go over well.
A real one.
right?
We'd have a riot on our hands.
So I have a question regarding transportation, regarding our zone managers. So the folks that are in charge of each, like South Central, North, which I believe Tim Duffy's one, and then Miss Jinks is here. And I had a concern a couple of years ago regarding the amount of hours that those folks were putting in for their position. And I know we put new things in place as far as software. How is that situation coming, helping those folks being able to do their job more efficiently over the last? I know last year was a COVID year, so that shot everything. But moving forward, how's that? How are we looking at helping them be able to do their job efficiently without being overworked
Yes,
per
sir.
se?
Yes, sir. And most of that, thank you for the question, most of that has been the result of folks having to drive buses
Right.
outside of their duty hours. I think Jay's got staffing in place, whether it be a mechanic coming in early in the morning and kind of opening up the shop so that the manager doesn't have to come in at 5 and stay till 5 every day. So Jay will tell you that he's got enough in place where that is more of the exception rather than the rule.
Right.
But again, we've also, as managers, they're not part of the overtime pay group.
Correct.
So that's been the issue. So Jay has been working to make sure that those folks have more regular work days, and not like the ones Mr. Chambers spends when he's up there 12 hours a day. So.
Well, he's the superintendent.
He is, that's right. He's going into his day. So that, and I can reach out to Jay and have him touch base with you on that, but as we work through an issue in the central part of the county, he moved some folks around and made it so where that the manager wasn't having to come in sunrise to sunset.
Right. Okay. Ms. Perry, anything else that you'd like to?
That's the last I had here. Does anybody have any other questions or concerns, information they need?
Mr. McInnes, anything that, Mr. Chambers?
I would just like to say I appreciate very much the support of the board, very much appreciate the conversations that we had leading into this budget, and especially with our vision to come with a reorganization. You guys asked fair questions, which I absolutely appreciate. But again, you can't get to this point, be conservative in our approach without a team effort. So just like to thank each and every one of you. Thank Julie, taking over the baton, who's come in and is doing a great job. She's interacting with each of the departments well.
Great job.
But also to do all of this, Mr. Horton, Ms. Lightbourne, Dr. Hale, and many others play a role. Many of our assistants or secretaries play a role in this additionally. So just appreciate everyone's work to be able to come here, bring this before you all. Just again, I couldn't be prouder.
Thank you.
And Dr. White, and with Dr. Kelly?
I think it went very smoothly. As I said earlier, I appreciate all the in-depth conversations prior to getting here. I think it was well put together and easy to understand format. Thank you.
Ms. Benjamin?
Nothing's great. Did a good job.
And I would just close out by saying again, thank you, Mr. Chambers, thank you to the board. It was great. To the public, of course, this was televised, and all information is public record, and we do our best to always be transparent. So what we have is available for the public to see, and we do appreciate everybody that participates in this in the budget process. It's a never-ending battle, just to say the
All
least.
online for people to go through this budget. It's
All right,
online.
this meeting's adjourned.